Okay. Hello. It's been a while. It has been a while. So, as you may have seen on Discord, I have run into a few problems. Just a little bit, not too much. Um, I'm gonna just get pull because I'm on my desktop. Okay. Okay. So, what I might just want to do today is work on lists um, until people start joining. And then what I might do is go over some problems I've been having because I do have a lot of those, unfortunately. But what you can see here is kind of what I've been working towards lately. Regardless of what I said in Discord, constants work now. Um, Lists are coming, and then modules are implemented. So all I have to do is implement the functions existing inside the modules, especially to do with lists or objects and stuff like that. And there really is as much as you can do, and I'd really like to do that. But lists, I think, is what I'm going to do for the first hour or so today, and make sure it's working really working fine. And then for loops, I've had a lot of problems with them right now, just thinking about making them properly. So cross that bridge when we get to it. It's already a little bit implemented, but I'm sure that if I write it, it'll get a compilation error or something. So let's get to it. So lists, for example. So basically, the way lists work, let's go to here. This is lists. So let's just get rid of the for loop, okay? And we'll comment that extend. That's a little bit more complicated. So a list is part of an expression. More specifically, it's part of a non-operational expression. So if I go down to lang.cpp, you can see that if I go down here, an expression, a RedScript expression, contains an operation and then a left and a right. An operation which contains a left side, a right side, and an operation like a plus, minus, multiply, divide, or modulus, or whatever. And then a way of converting it. But it also has something called a non-operational result, which is when we're parsing an expression, and instead of finding something to do with maths, we end up finding something to do with, an object, for example, or an array, or a variable, right? So what we're going to go with today is implementing the list. So right now, what all I need to do is make a function to parse lists. That's really it. It's just going to be find the open square bracket, evaluate. How you doing, Sebastian? Some people can C#, some people can CPP. Okay. Deep words. Deep words. Yeah, so what I was just saying there is I've got a lot of problems. Like, I have tried to find the best way to implement loops, and they just will not implement for the life of me. And it's mainly because I've chosen RedScript to not be type enforced, so let's make a file and I'll try and explain it here. So if I were to have a for loop, actually I think I committed some docs on this. Let me see. You storing variables. Hi Adam. Hi, how you doing? You storing variables in lists as value or reference? Damn, dork is just mean, not gonna lie. Storing variables in lists as value or reference? Value, 100%. There's no references in Minecraft, so if I had, like, for example, if I go down to lists here, if I had X as a list and it equals this, and then I say Y is a list and it equals X, Y will not be X, it'll be a copy of X. So it's you know, they're not going to be optimized because references don't really exist. And they're not, yeah, they're not very, unfortunately, Minecraft, the game, isn't very forgiving about sticking a programming language inside it. Fun fact though, I did actually see some video about this guy who went on lists in Python, and he said you could do something like 1 2 x, and if you tried to print that, if you like, it would be an infinite recursive list. So if you did print x, you would get 1 2 and then another list with ... I thought that was very interesting because, you know, it's always passed by reference in Python, and I just, you know, very weird feature. But anyway, yeah, so my problem with 4 is I wrote a little doc about some content. I get a not defined error. Really? Try just doing that. Try doing like that, maybe. Maybe you're not on the right version of Python. Maybe it's introduced in something new. Anyway, for loops, you know, while loops I think might be a bit easier. But the syntax I came up with for loops, there's so many different, and Sebastian, maybe you could help me with this. You're good with syntactical things. Oh yeah, that's it. Something like that. Yeah. Jeez, okay. Just found it instantly. X is square brackets and then x dot append x. So let me go into loops and preview it. You are, definitely. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, let me preview and bring it over. So I was thinking, you know, iterating over objects is quite easy. You know, for example, if I were to go into the inbuilt... Oh my god, this song. I love this song. It's the Plants vs Zombies theme. If I go into Lang, can't find my way around this tree. You can see I've made it an object pair. Okay, now remember, objects are just JSON objects, but they can also be treated as classes. So that's what's really powerful about them. So as you can see here, there's no constructor, but by marking a field as required, it does have to be part of a constructor if created. You can forget about compare for a second. Just don't worry about that. But the pair has an I2, an I1, and an I2. So iterating over objects, I could make a pair be an object with I1 and I2, or I could make a pair be a list of 2 items, you know, and that probably would be more performant. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it though. If I go back to the preview, you can see if I were to iterate through hello being goodbye and goodbye being hello, then you just, for x being a pair in object, pretty nice simple syntax, right? Iterating over lists, you can put a constant, and you know the in keyword is still being used here, and you can use this for variables as well. Iterating over ranges, you know, I was thinking doing some different syntax, but it was just too many keywords. So what I might just end up doing is implement something like Python, where it just has a range, a const evaluated range function. And to be honest, Python does it so well, that's why I might just completely take it out of their books, you know? But what I did have before was something like this, where it would be for x being an integer in range, or in 4.10, and that would be the same as that would be the same as in C That would be the same in C as that. So I might implement that as well. I'll call that the range operator or something. But I don't know. I was kind of having problems because Minecraft actually does support something like this for a lot of the time. Yeah, it gives, yeah, dot dot dot. It's mad. Check out how Go does it. Does Go pass it as references? Does Go pass a list? Oh, Go for loops. Is that... Wait, so actually... Let me get... I think that actually might be it, right? So no brackets. Have some random songs on. That's going back on. What a banger. I'm sorry, this is disgusting. Capital P. Go loop ranges. Line 8. Yeah, for I and V. Why is there 2? For being index and value? The first is the index and the second is a copy of the element at that index. That's just the enumerate function, yeah. Like, I would like my language to be usable. Like any other language, right? But the problem is, these loops are like impossible to make in RedScript. Like, think about it, right? To make a function in RedScript, we have to make a whole new .mc function file and stick all the contents in there, okay? And that's the only way we can modularize things. So to make a for loop, what we have to do is we have to create an anonymous for function. So something like blah, 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 dot for, and maybe like the name of the function you're in. If you're in like myfunc.for.mc function, right? And in there, it has to keep calling itself over and over and over as long as a condition is met. And there is a max call stack size of 65,525, 65525, something like that. Where if you exceed recursion of that amount, it's bad. So while trues, for example, aren't going to be so lucky. And for loops can't go over 65,000 iterations. I can change that. But what I don't want to be doing is infinitely recursing into itself. It's more memory being consumed, and the stack frame just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I really don't have a solution right now. What I might implement in the next week or so is something like this. Literally just for 4 times do something. That's fine. I can parse that in compile time and just copy paste for all I care. Sorry. Each loop has I and yeah, is it struct deconstruction? Some languages do it like what you have with the pair object, but they have a deconstruction method on it. This allows you to do something like P is a pair is equal to, yeah, do while loops not become if statements that get triggered in the game loop? There's no game loop. Let me show you how it works. So a complex program would be what we were working on a minute ago. This program right here, modules. So this is a module is a namespace, or you might have seen them in Python. No, they're not in Python. Why haven't I saved this? Okay. Basically, you can access a module by using the module access operator, which is just 2 colons, and I think it looks quite nice. And as you can see, test contains Z and X, and X contains a nested function Y, which we can call. And it took a lot of work. Me and Sebastian and some other guys tried to figure it out last week. What we do to distinguish Y from this Y, for example, because this function is completely outside of the test module, is we need to employ some name mangling. Actually, I found that term a while ago. So if I compile this, I'm actually not sure if my Um, oops, forgot the name of my own executable. So huh? I got a segmentation fault. Unexpected token after variable usage. So this is probably... Oh my goodness. But there's no variables being used here. I didn't change anything, unless I did on my laptop. Famous last words. So then the for loop looks like this: for key valid items. Yeah, exactly. I could do an unpacking kind of thing. Do while loops. Sorry, well, your question was not become if statements. So yeah, they kind of do. A while loop in itself is a separate file that keeps calling itself, and every time it reaches the start, it will make sure that the condition is true. Same with a for loop. With a conditional for loop, you know, for I is 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. That's a conditional for loop, but it just doesn't run forever. And the problem with while loops is I would like it to run forever, but Minecraft has a infinite stack. So I could make an infinite command block, but then if the player goes out of range, then it's not going to work. Anyway, oh my god. Run examples, modules, red script. Am I, like, going insane? Why am I getting that error? Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. No, this is new code. Wait, is it? Why am I in object parse? This function shouldn't be called. We're in 2 red script bytecode at line 1225. Keyword else. Did I forget a break statement or something? Like, what's going on here? Okay. Something's... There's no else statement in this file. Okay, do you know what I'm going to do? Is I'm actually just going to build it again, and hopefully it doesn't... I don't get that error. Because there's literally no else statement in the fucking program. I don't understand. So what I'm going to do today is lists. So the for loop problem would be I could do something like this. I could do something like this. I could do something. But again, I don't have a feasible way of doing them right now. So I'll have to just sleep on them for now. What I want to be able to implement today is lists of any item I want, including variables. The problem with this, of course, is this will convert to Minecraft commands like store 123 in variables, and then copy x to, or no, append x to L. So it's actually 2 commands instead of 1. So if you have a load of variables in your lists, it's going to do a lot of commands, right? It's not the end of the world. And then I want to be able to print it, of course. So I'm going to open up the game to check that as well. But right now, we need to just do a list parsing function. I might have to cut this stream short, unfortunately. Have to pause it for half an hour or something. Sounds slow, isn't append O of n, not O of 1. Well, that's something I can't control. So to be honest, not a problem there, because you know there is a command in Minecraft for data append, and you can just As long as the data is a list, you can just append it and be fine. But that's something I can't control. Um, what I am concerned about is trying to keep things concise. But of course, the more variables you try and add to your list, like X, Y, Z, W, that's not initializing a variable. This is quite literally for this is for lists append calls, basically. You're doing that 4 times, which is bad, which is pretty bad. So we'll have to figure it out. Why can't you store 1, 2, 3 and reference X? Or what do you mean 1, 2, 3 and X? Oh, why can't I store them? Well, because 1, 2, and 3 are all constants, so the command will turn out to be God, what am I listening to? Jesus Christ. The command will turn out to be store the literal list constant 1, 2, 3 in variables. Yeah, or technically we would store an object with the value of the variable, so we'd say data. Sorry, value is that, and then the type of it will be the list type ID. And then next we will do, you know, that variables is a list of things, so we would know at compile time what index it would be, and let's say I call that index I. Then I would do data append variables I from another storage, and then I would get the variable at X index, and then I would get its value. So then I would do all of that to append X to the end of the list. Of course, this is done at compile time, so that's fine. Why don't you treat the value of X as a constant, get its value before you do the store command? Why don't I treat the value of X as a constant, get its value before you do the store command? Yeah, just can't do it. I could do it obviously in sort of a compilation sense, like if X was an integer and it equaled 4 and I did comma X, then I could implement something to just iterate over what X is, and if X still is a constant, we can just snippet it in and not worry about it. And that can work especially when you make const variables like this. But you can't do that when doing this. I mean, everybody knows that, you know, if I wanted to append a player to the list, then, well, that's, you know, a bit crazy, right? But you're storing so X is 15, so store 15. But you're storing a copy of its value, so it won't get updated anyway. Yeah, you're right. But what you need to understand is, Minecraft doesn't let you do things properly. So I can't just kind of go, oh yeah, just stick in X. I need to find a way to retrieve the value of X and put it in the list. And unfortunately, that's the only way to do it, is to append it through that. So, unfortunate, right? So I can actually open the game and show it to you. Give me 2 seconds. So I might actually have to come back in an hour. Something's come up, unfortunately. Which is annoying. Okay. If you can get the value of X to append it... Oh, sorry. Why not just get the value before you create the list and then use the value in the store command? Yeah, because the store command has to be written before the program even runs. There's no just snippet it in. Like, okay, you're right, there is such thing called macros in Minecraft where you can do a command such as $data store, and you can actually pass in a variable like that. But these are very, very, very badly performant. So yeah, it's all compile time. So here is, hopefully you'll be able to see the game. No, you can't. Excuse me. Okay. There we go. There we go. So here I have a little, oh, I changed versions, the signs don't work. So the program running currently is the program we already compiled. And let's go back and take a look at the program in modules. So we just have a module test with Z and X. And when we call Z in the test module, it says we're in Z. And if we call Y in the method X, we're in Y. And if we call the other Y in the other method X, we say in Y, but not the module Y. And then to run the program, we call test X. So test X, which calls Z of its current module, which is in Z. And then it calls its nested function in Y. So we know the output should be in Z in Y. Then test Z, which we just get in Z again. So in Z, in Y, in Z. And then X, which calls Y, which is in Y, not in module Y. So let's go back. And we reload and run it. And you can see we get in Z, in Y, in Z, and then in the other Y. So that works. And the way it compiles is through, sorry, can I not see my Windows bar? Like, hello? Go off full screen. Thank you. Oh my god, I'm gonna lose it. I am pressing the Windows key, but it's turned off for when I enter a game, unfortunately. If I go to my folder where it compiled to, no, not that, for God's sake. You can go in here and it's name mangling for some of the functions, and here's the entry point. So you can see, to start, we set up an empty list for our variables, registers, internal program data, stack, return value, and temporary value. And then we call test X, test Z. So you can see the module is created as a folder. And we can go inside here and we have X and Z, and then we have an anonymous Y function. So there's no way for any other function to know about that outside. And for a user to accidentally call it, you know? And what I can actually do is go back in here and I can actually run it manually. I can do function, and then this is the test one, which says in Y. There you go, it says in Y. And then we can also do the other one that isn't in test, and that says in Y, but not in module Y. So the functions work, but it all has to be at compile time. If I wrote something, we could change this program to, let's see, let's do, I really wish I could start making like actual cool programs, but it's turning out to be difficult. TP up a block. Yeah, to do that, I'd have to implement the TP command. And to do that as well, I'd have to implement another operator I've been really waiting to do. So for example, let's go to the language file where every function is made. I just closed my command prompt. As you can see, there's get attribute, which hasn't been implemented, set attribute, which hasn't been implemented, and I'm concerned as to why I didn't get a compile error because, okay, anyway. Message has been implemented, and I can kill people. That's implemented. And this hasn't been implemented. So what I have to do here is I have to go and make a way of calling TP in the file, which unfortunately, so we would need a player, which is a strict selector. And then we would need a position, and I have no idea how to do that. As you can see up here, I use the math file, and if I go into math, I actually have a location of X, Y, and Z. But what I want to be able to do is go in here and do location is a location, and it is equal to this new location 12 44 54, and then I want to be able to do TP location and then use the tilde operator. Sorry. Yeah, the tilde operator. And what that does, if I go back into Minecraft to show you, if I was to do a TP me tilde tilde tilde, that just teleports me to exactly where I am. And if I were to put a number beside the Y, like 10, I would go 10 blocks up the Y. So it's a way of doing that without having to do, okay, player is get player dot position and then TP position dot X position dot Y plus 10 position dot Z. That's gonna be really hard to compile as well because we don't, oh sorry, I'm not showing it, because we don't know what we're doing. So position X, Y, and Z. So I really have to spend a lot of time implementing these or getting my own way to write the function in here, which wouldn't be hard, but I can't communicate at all with what I'm doing. If I go to the message implementation in C++, let's go to that in the inbuilt file. This is all on the GitHub, you can take a look. You can see the parameters that I take in. I take in a bytecode program, a command factory for spitting out commands, all the parameters to the function, and an error if something went wrong. So you can see to call the message function, the first thing always has to be a selector, like the at P, at or, at A. And if we fail, then we have to set a compile error. So I actually handle a lot of the inbuilt functionality to the compiler just to make sure that users don't screw it up. Do you know what I mean? And that's because I was going to mention this to you, Sebastian, and both of you, that I really am considering making this type strict because things like this happen. You know, people will pass in the wrong thing, and because of that, I have to assert the type, you know? So what I have to do before I do anything is make some sort of pre-compilation keywords, such as making a method constant. Yeah, if I were to make a constant method, or put the const over here, for example, just call it const. And in the TP, I could call, I could call certain functions like, I was talking to Sebastian about this a while ago, compile assert, which would assert a Boolean expression. And I would have to make my own engine that would not impact performance, but still allow me to implement the TP. For example, the TP, one sec. Sorry about that. Cons. I actually got to go to, but why don't you add exclamation mark to the parameter types? Yeah, so okay, so Adam, if you're not familiar, this exclamation mark marks the type as strictly this. It can't be null, can't be anything else. It must be this, right? But I don't enforce it. And I've been waiting until the right time to enforce these. But this arises things like, let's say I wanted to, in here, I made a variable x and I didn't tell what type it was, and I said it was 4. And then I called TP with x. Or how about instead of the 4, I did something like call some random function. And this call some random function doesn't have a return type. Yeah? And I just returned something that is just, I returned call some other function. I think this is an almost impossible task to implement, to find out and verify whether or not X is of that type. So what I can do to solve all my problems is enforce method return types, enforce them, and then also enforce variable return types or variable types, and then everything is as good as day. This will return a compile error because we can't have an integer. And I think I thought I could do it without that, I thought I could say, okay, grand, we can work with type ambiguity or type not static types, but it just doesn't look like it'll work. So I might just have to, and I don't know if that syntax is nice because I could switch this around to just being a normal const int x. I think it's okay. But I don't know. You think you could find a way of figuring that out? I seriously... don't know. Is enforcing types easier than the function just checking it? Enforcing types is like changing 4 lines of code. Basically saying, okay, we encounter the method keyword, and then if we don't encounter a type, then compile error. If we're finding a variable and we don't encounter a type, then it must have already been created before with a type. You know what I mean? That's all enforcing type takes. Writing these functions for every single parameter, I need to go in here and just make sure that is what it is. Because if it's not a selector and we're passing in, imagine an object instead of a selector, the entire function wouldn't work and the user would hate the language because it's compiled just absolute nonsense. Sounds easier and safer. I agree. And that would allow me to be a lot more free with what I do, Now, again, if you read the docs, you can actually read the documentation in the Discord. Let me take a look at it right now. Let's go to the Discord. So if I go to types here, right? This is what we've got so far. We have a type. Oh, there we go. I just have to scale up my browser. That's it. Or is it because my browser was... No, never mind. So types are a non-mandatory way of explicitly defining value types. And they can be the type name followed by... Okay. I need some actual good music. I'm sorry. Just whatever. Give me anything. Followed by an exclamation mark or a question mark or nothing. And then followed by a possible union type. I'll explain this in a second. So the explicit operator, which is an exclamation mark, is used in type notation to indicate that the object we are applying type notation to must be of that type. Okay, so it can't be null, can't be anything else, it must be T. The implicit operator is used to describe a type that can also be null. So T question mark questions whether or not it is that type or nothing. And then I also have something where it's a raw type. Types don't require an implicit or explicit operator. They can be used normally as well. It's important to note that no error will be thrown if x is given a different type as a value. So if x :int equals hello world as a string, nothing would be wrong with that. So I do like the syntax of saying exclamation mark must be this, question mark could be that, or null, and none of them I just can't fit that in, you know? And I don't want people writing the exclamation mark over and over and over, and I also don't want to remove the exclamation mark because it seems to me quite strict and quite, you know, in your face. It should be that, you know? Int equals quotes is for crazy people. Nah, like, you gotta understand that you can do that in Python. Like, you literally can. So it's you know, and look here, you know, union types, you can have int or string. And if I had in union types, I don't think I could compile this. Like, I could, but we again reach that problem of what if the function only wants a string, and x just so happened to have an integer when being called. We'd have to throw a runtime error, and I don't know how I would do that, you know? You don't declare types in Python, though. It's no, you do. You can, and they're used in like all libraries to help you figure it out, you know? So I just have such a crossroads. I don't know. Listen, what I'll end up doing for most of the inbuilt functions, so for all the Minecraft commands and for all the special functions of the language, they'll all be inbuilt. But there's gonna come other functions that will use those inbuilt functions, and those ones need to have certainty that they will run. For example, method tell player hi would take in player, which is a player, and then sorry, and then a message, or just a player, right? And then we would do something like message p hi. Something like that. Forgot where I'm getting at. I'm not activating Windows. Never. Uh-uh. So what I decide from here on out is really going to determine how the language works, functions, and operates. And basically, you know when you write, how you write a program in C, and if something goes wrong, it just exits and there's nothing telling you what went wrong? Well, it's the same with Redscript, you know? There's no errors. There's only compile errors. Once it goes into that state, it should run. Like, it should run. Yeah, literally. So by that logic, I think I should have it type enforced, so that nothing ever goes wrong and people don't think the language is horrible. But then again, on the other hand, it restricts them to having to always write this colon everywhere And I think people would not like that very much. Yeah, look at this, for example, right? This is the old type. So the type function returns the type of a variable or object attribute. Only use this function with something stored in storage. So what this does is returns, and it's a single function, so it only has one line of code, and it's a no compile function to say this isn't a function we're going to spit into the data pack folder. Type will just return the get attribute of the variable type. But what if they pass in something that isn't a variable? What if they pass in the constant 4? Well, the constant 4 in memory is just 4. There's no parameter, there's no variable, so there is no attribute type to that. It's not an object. So that's why you'd have to implement for some of these like references, you know? It has to exist in the program for it to be used in this function. If you know there's going to be a type after, you don't need it. What do you mean? Yeah, but I don't like it without the colon. I really don't. Like, method int. People are just going to say, okay, why is the method keyword there then? Because you know it's a function. It's like the func keyword. Yeah, pretty much. Func. Yeah. It's just really pissing me off because I had a lot of motivation one day ago until I tackled this, and I'm just like, I really enjoyed this syntax. It's really nice, and I want to keep it not type strict. But I want to have a way of, you know, enforcing types. But if I was a user and I was like, oh, cool, there's a programming language for Minecraft, uh, let me make a function, and I'll say if y is even, return hello, and otherwise, this compiles fine, by the way, return -1. And then I go, or how about this, return at p. Okay, well then if I try to do message and pass in, remember message will have the first parameter being who, so at p, at or, you know, and then I passed in 3. Wait, does that work? No, doesn't work. I don't think. Let me try and compile this. Why? Yeah. Unexpected token. Yeah, look, segfault. Great. And if I take a step in, oh, it's the same error I got, oh, I'm getting the error by using the maths file. Okay, we'll come back to that. That's fine. What? Oh. Yeah, the air is coming from there. So here you can see type name unsupported. This is what happens when you mess with the inbuilt file. Yeah. So it doesn't like functions in expressions. My language anyway. And that's because functions are quite expensive, function calls. So what I'll have to do is this. So this will be a selector or an integer, and we'll say call it x, call it y, and we pass y in. And then obviously sorry, I have to call 3, and then I'll say hello. Expected selector is argument 0. So obviously the argument 0 that we passed in was not constant, and it's determined at runtime. And selectors have to be introduced at runtime because they have to go into the command say at p. You can't just say variable dot value. It doesn't just snip in like that. It has to be at p. So when it comes to selectors, they have to be constant. Try x of 2. I don't think I haven't implemented that yet, so even though you know it should return a selector, the whole function will have to be evaluated at compile time for this to work. Even this wouldn't work, I don't think, if I did that. Yeah, see, because it's a variable. And I'm just at so many crossroads. So many crossroads. Now, selectors don't have to be constant because I can introduce macros, and I can introduce, okay, so message converts to a function called tellraw, a command called tellraw, and I can do $tellraw, and I can do $who, and then I can call this entire function. I'd have to call message 0, and then I'd have to do function message 0 with who at p. So, this is just disgusting. If I wanted to call it again with yeah, so message is a conversion function. It doesn't actually compile into a function itself. Okay. I am just a few days ago I was loving what I was doing. I made my modules, I made everything, and right now so confused. Anyway, just before I go, let's try and make lists. So first of all, I'm going to go into language. And I'm going to go down here to where we have our parse inline object. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a shared pointer to Redscript array, I guess we could call it. Just Redscript list. And I'll put that right beside the definition of Redscript object. So a Redscript list really only has to have just so you know, a RBC value is just anything that it could be. So it could be a constant, a reference to a register, a reference to a variable, an object, or something random. And now I'm introducing probably the final one that's going to be, which is going to be a list. So right before this void is going to be a shared pointer to a redscript list, like that. And I'll have to update that in this file. Where do we... Here. Right there. So that should fix that. But again, a list should just be... Now an object, what does an object have? It has a name. It has a name. This is when you're parsing like an object structure, not an object instantiation. But a list, it really isn't a structure itself. It's just a type define as a redscript list, which is just a standard vector of some type. That's really it, isn't it? So hopefully my API that I've written will help me do this quite fast because I have to go. So the parameters we're passing in is the program we're compiling, a list of tokens where we are at in the tokens, and an error pointer if something goes wrong. Oh, sorry. A list is going... Oh, yeah, a list is going to be a list of items of RBC value. This is going to cause like 900 compile errors. Because an RBC value references... Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do here... Oh, God. Oh, shit. Because if an RBC value is this, we can't have it in here as well. Can't have it reference itself. So what we'll have to do is go back to what I was doing earlier and just do a vector of RBC values. That should be fine. Okay. Let's make this function quickly. So first of all, we're going to assume that we are starting it at the index after the square bracket. So call after first square bracket. Cheers, bro. Thought I muted those guys. They're the most annoying shits on the planet. So if we call after the first square bracket... Is there still errors here? Okay, I need to define this. Yeah, that's fine. So this function expr_eval evaluates an expression, as it should. So what we can do is just for every single item in the list, as long as there's a comma, we just call that. So we do a do while. Well, we're going to make a redscript list. To a redscript list. List is a make shared redscript list. And we'll return that at the end. And then we'll, or, you know what? Don't need to do that. We can just allocate this on the stack. We'll call it a day and return standard make shared here. A shared pointer is just Sorry. A shared pointer is just a reference to something that a lot of things share, and it will never get deleted as long as something shares it, as long as something is still alive with it. Okay, so we'll do a do while, and we'll do list, oh sorry, redscript expression expert is expert eval, which is the function we're doing below, and we'll pass in program tlist start error, and we are not in brackets. We're, well, like not in normal parentheses. We don't need a line end, so false, false. We're not in an object, and we do want to prune the expression. And then here we will, what is what? Oh, what he said in chat. Just a bot, I think. And then we can do expression dot evaluate, which will give me a result t, which is of type RBC value. No? I have to update this because this is also another reference to the type that holds anything. It's a variant. It just, you know, holds this or this or this or this. Okay. Evaluate program error, and why the hell is that a parameter? Where do what the hell does that parameter do? I haven't written this in months. Oh, okay, it's just for recursion. I just closed the file. So if it's for recursion, we don't need it. Okay, so we do that. We evaluate it, and obviously if something went wrong, so if the error's trace has an error code, we just return nothing. And the same here. Finally, we can do list dot values dot pushback value. Thank God those squiggles went away. And we do while we advance, and or we can't do that, sorry. While start plus 1 is less than size, we'll do constant long size is the tlist dot size. So while we can go into the future, into the next token, and hold on a second. No. While start, so while the current token that we're at less than s, and tlist dot at start dot type is token type symbol. Fuck's sake. now that we can parse a list, we go down to the big file, which is this. If the current token is a curly bracket, if it's a selector literal, or it is a square bracket open, we will set the expression's non-operational result to parse list. And we will pass in program. And we have to do, sorry, standard make shared value. Do that. And we'll pass in program, tlist start, and error. And we'll say down here, if at, that can go away, dot type does not equal to token type square bracket closed. Did I say square bracket closed down here? No. Then we will call an expression error, and we will say it's a syntax error, unclosed square bracket with the trace of at.trace, return null pointer, and that's it. Okay, I do unfortunately have to go. Something has come up. I might be on in an hour or so. If I'm not, the Discord is open. I'll probably be programming there. But thank you for tuning in. I have to just unfortunately run away, which is quite annoying. Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, enjoy. I gotta run. Something's come up. Okay, I'll see you guys soon. Probably tomorrow I'll be on. Thanks so much for watching.